validate their feelings, because when you tell kids that, then they know you're on their side. They know that you understand them. And then the next thing after that is explain why you're homeschooling.
We are back with another question. So it says this: how do we help our kids to have a positive attitude and be grateful about being homeschooled? Some of their peers are in traditional school, and my kids often feel like they're missing out on things. Fun class activities, sports, band, social clubs, elective classes, etc. I've actually met adults who were homeschooled as kids, and they felt the same way and now resent their parents for homeschooling them and not allowing them to have a normal childhood. That is a really good question. And I think that's a question that so many of us have thought through. I mean, I know that Garrett and I have thought that from our very first decision to homeschool, not so much about our kids having a positive attitude, but like, are we going to mess them up? Are they going to grow up to be adults who are then going to resent our decision to homeschool them?
Well, my thought too, when I first heard this, is we don't need to convince this mom that what she's doing is right, because she already knows. The question is, she already knows why she's doing it. She already knows that socialization is greater and blah, blah. But the reality is kids don't care. Like, it's not the mom we're convincing. Her question is, how do we handle the kids? How do we address the kids? And I think for me, this is a twofold. One, I think we can validate what the kids are saying. Like, you know what? Yeah, that's a bummer. I see. That looks fun. I think so often as homeschool parents, we want to be like, it's not really that great. Those science experiments they're all doing together, or that recess, it really isn't that great. You're not missing out on anything. And the truth is, that's why when she said she's actually spoken to adults who are like, I did. The truth is, we need to validate it and say, you know what, that does look fun. And the reality is that probably is fun. And validate their feelings, because when you tell kids that, then they know you're on their side. They know that you understand them. And then the next thing after that is explain why you're homeschooling and say, you know what, here's the reason that we're homeschooling. It's not to keep you from those things. It's not to, but there are things there that we do not feel like are God's plan for you. And this is why we're homeschooling, and let them catch the vision as to, yes, there are things you're going to miss out on. And then take it a step further and say, as an adult, there are things I'm going to miss out on. You know, when I went away to college and I walked with Christ, there were things I got to miss out on. Like, I missed out on the really fun rafting trips that were co-ed, because maybe the sleeping situation I didn't feel like was glorifying God. And explain to your kids is there are going to be fun things that we miss out on in life, because that's just the nature of the Christian walk. But then you can talk about this, but here's what we gain instead. You know, sitting in school all day. Yeah. Like, I have had to have this with my son. You are going to miss out on the social things because he loves that. And I'm like, but here's what you would miss out on if you were there. You know, the afternoon hikes that you thrive on. And so the reality is your kids are going to miss out on something, whether they're in public school, private school, homeschool, shipping off to boarding school. Every kid is going to miss out on something. And you can explain that to them and validate that and say, but here's what you gain, but here's what you get. And also, here's why we're doing it. And honestly, something that surprised me is when we watched the Schoolhouse Rocked movie, I had no idea, but it shocked me how it impacted my kids to watch that movie. All of a sudden, they watched that movie and they were like, oh, we get it. We get why you're doing this. Like, I've told them 100 times, but for some reason they didn't pick it up when I was saying it. But they watched the movie and they're like, okay, we get this. We have the vision. So yeah, we are going to miss out on some things, but here's what we gain and here's why we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that plug for the movie, which, by the way, if you guys haven't heard, if you don't know yet, you can stream the movie for free, schoolhouserockedmovie.com, and absolutely watch that with your kids, because that was one of the most shocking things for us, because we just hadn't considered
that it would
the impact
kids.
It would have on kids. Yeah. And it's been amazing. I mean, as kids have watched it and said, oh yeah, now I get it. Now I understand why you're homeschooling me. And what's kind of funny is, as I'm thinking about homeschooled kids, it's the grass is always greener on the other side.
Always,
right?
With everything.
Homeschooled kids always are like, oh man, I'm missing out on all these things because I'm not getting to be in a classroom. I'm not getting to go to, I remember actually, going into my freshman year, I went to a really small private school, up through junior high. And then there was the big Catholic school that, I really wanted to go to. My sister graduated from there, and they had a football team and they had pep rallies every Friday, and they had all kinds of really cool stuff. And so I told my parents, like, I want to go to a real high school. And so I went there my freshman year and I hated it. Hated it.
Oh,
It was basically like paying a lot of money to go to a really bad public school.
right.
And it was horrible. And there were fun parts of it. Like the pep rallies
Right.
were fun,
Right.
but I mean, I could go to football games without
Right.
having to go to that
Right.
school. And there were fun activities and stuff, but it wasn't what I thought it was.
Right.
And so I ended up going back to my other small Christian
Yeah.
school where I had a graduating class of 11 people.
Wow.
It was very small, but I loved it. And so
Right.
I went back to what I was most comfortable with. But, I thought this other school is going to be better. And I think so many times our kids think that. And then you've got kids in regular school, public school or private school who think, man, I would love to be homeschooled
Yeah. The
because
freedom
they know,
and
which
they
that
get
didn't used to be the case.
No.
But more and more today, they're realizing
Yep.
the beauty of homeschool. And so they've got,
Right.
we have neighbors who were like, oh, we wish we were homeschooled. And
Right.
we've met lots of people whose kids have said that to my kids.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of funny to see that dynamic now shifting.
Totally.
These public school kids going, I wish I could be homeschooled
I know.
too.
And I think you hit it. The grass is always greener on the other side. And we need to take this as an opportunity because that doesn't change. That doesn't change when you're 20.
Right.
It doesn't change when you're my age. I mean, I still look at, oh, I wish this and I wish that. And I think this is an excellent opportunity to teach our kids, this is why we're doing this. This is the road God's called us to. And we are going to miss out on some things.
Yeah.
But this is what we gain. I think one tactic we don't want to do is try to make the public schools sound so miserable. Like, oh, it's so awful there.
Sure.
You're so glad not to go there. Because then they talk to other kids and they hear the other kids actually saying like, this was a really fun thing we did.
Yeah.
And then they start to question you like, well, maybe you're keeping me from something. So I think we just need to be honest with our kids and say there are going to be fun things you miss out on, but there's a lot of fun things that we get to do that you wouldn't. And we're not picking our education choice based on the fun things. We're picking it based on what God calls to be the best for our family and the best for you. So
absolutely. I would say make them part of the process, no matter what their age is. If they're in kindergarten or in 12th grade, make them part of the process. So ask them, what do you want to learn this year? Or, when they're younger, of course, you're going to pave the way for them, but they can still be part of the process.
Totally.
You can still ask them, what field trips do you want to take and give them options.
Let them guide it a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so
find
then,
out what is it they're missing out on. Is it that academic? Is it the social? Is it, and then deal with that. It's not the whole package. I'm promising you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not. And help them to see, without feeling like you're manipulating them, but help them to see the blessing of homeschooling. And most people, I won't say all, because of course it's different. Some people live in really small towns like you, Abby.
Right.
We live in a big area where there's tons of opportunities for homeschooled kids. I mean, they're just everywhere. There's sports teams. We have sports teams that have made it to nationals before. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
There's every co-op you can imagine, every class offered.
So your kids aren't left wanting that.
No, but then there are people who live in small communities where they don't have access to all of those things.
So when my kids, my kids have never had a desire to go to public school, but I do know that they have a desire for other kids, that being around. And so we do that as a co-op, but there's still not a lot. And I'm like, you guys, regardless if you're a public or private in this town, because we're small, there's just not the people, So man, there's so many great co-op, there's so many great opportunities for homeschoolers. You just have to find them and tap into them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And if there's not one, try to create one in your area if you can. Because I'm certain that there are probably other people in your area who are looking for the same thing. Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.